Hello, everybody. This is Rory Comiskey with Igniting American Manufacturing, where we talk about everything manufacturing in the States, working towards a prosperous America and a prosperous middle class. We're going to touch on workforce development and reshoring, things of that nature. Very excited to have my guest host on today, Sophie Boel. And Sophie, correct me if I didn't pronounce that your maiden name correctly.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Sophie and I have actually been in the trenches together, and that's a story unto itself. That might actually be a whole segment, but this is the point where if Brian Sexton, my co-host, was here, he would point to me and ask me what's new in the week in manufacturing. Oh, he's not here, so I'm just going to jump in. So they're going to throw up a slide here, and all right, let's see. So this slide is about workforce development, and we talk about, and then these things we've talked about quite a bit. And the second slide is something new, and it's kind of a revelation to me. But we talk about that there's a 4 million labor shortage in manufacturing by 2030 anticipated. We currently have about a 62.7 labor force participation, which is an issue. In semiconductor is reporting a 56K deficiency in labor right now, and some surveys are saying that number is 80 to 90, and I've actually seen 118, but I'm going to go with the low number and say we have about a 60,000 person shortage. Now, 60% of companies out there in manufacturing are reporting they're having a hard time hiring, but out of that percentage, only 34% say they actually have a program where they're working on it. So this is data we've talked about quite a bit. So I wrote an article about it, and I actually asked a couple of friends in the industry to read it and give me some feedback. And this next slide's about that feedback. It was actually kind of took me by surprise. So we do know, we talk about micro-learning and nano-learning and the stigma around blue-collar work and manufacturing. Talk about that quite a bit. This was a revelation to me. Those entering the workforce today are probably going to have 2 to 3 major career changes through their career. That is what they're calling the new norm. That same worker is probably going to have somewhere between 12.4 jobs between the ages of 18 and 54. The World Economic Forum reports that 42% core skills are going to change over the next 2 years. So what does that have to do with our conversation today? So we talk about nanodegrees, we talk about micro certifications. Now we need to start talking about lifelong learning and applying that micro learning and nano to people actually in the field to future-proof their career. So another thing, we need to take a look at the workforce development. So that's our thought for the day. So I'm going to jump in, and I told you I have been in the trenches with Sophie here. I'm very glad to have you. Sophie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Rory. It's wonderful to be here.
Congratulations on your marriage since I last saw you. That's
Yes,
very exciting
thank you.
for you there. So Sophie.
It is, yeah, some life changes.
It is a life change, yes it is. When you stand still long enough, it all changes. I'm going to jump right in. Sophie, one of the reasons I threw this slide up is you've actually had some career changes or path changes already in your young career.
Absolutely.
You went to Carnegie Mellon, did I get that right?
Correct, yes.
And you got your degree in?
Civil engineering. Civil and environmental dual program with a double major in public policy, which sort of explains some of the transitions in my career. So those were the big two.
And we're going to talk about women in engineering in a little bit. It's definitely, but I'm going to kind of get a little bit of a bio from here. So Carnegie Mellon, graduated, and your first job was actually out in the oil fields or oil industries, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, first job was with Schlumberger, based in West Texas.
Okay, all right. How'd you like that industry?
I really enjoyed my time there. I learned so much. It was a pretty rigorous environment, for sure, physically challenging. A lot of lot of long days and long nights and a lot of sleep deprivation, but it was a really great place to learn as an engineer. I would describe myself now. At the time, I didn't fully realize this, but I would say that I am an engineer who appreciates field applications and field problems. Definitely want to get my hands dirty kind of thing. And the oil field was a great place to do that, though very challenging.
You can definitely get dirty in the oil field. So you talked about long hours. From there, you segued to where we met over in an EV battery factory out in Nevada for a large producer, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And
yeah,
were the hours
that's
any
correct.
shorter? And I know the answer to this question. Were the hours any shorter or less rigorous?
No, surprisingly, no. I think I had anticipated a bigger work-life balance change, and that did not come at that time.
Well, our customer talked about production hell.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure it was hell. I enjoyed every second of it. I enjoyed working with you.
Yes.
You know, I mentioned
Absolutely
we
same.
actually had a project that was extremely challenging, and I just mentioned this. You know, we talked before the show how those projects. Hopefully, there are not too many of them in your career, but it was extremely challenging. We worked. We were handed a problem and asked to fix it, and we both worked on it day and night. And it kind of, getting through that kind of stuff, to me, I bonded with you, I think. So I think the team bonded. I actually saw that over the
Absolutely.
course of it. Those are things you remember. So EV, totally different. So oil, EV, and then you wound up kind of an EV, but a different area. You're currently with?
Currently with Redwood Materials. Yep. So we are a lithium battery recycler and a battery materials manufacturer. I've been with Redwood for 3 years.
You're being humble. You're one of the industry standard bearers in that. And J.B. Strollo, who is one of the founders there, was
Correct.
one of the co-founders at Tesla. So he's
Is
looking
correct.
at the EV as an ecosystem. He's started building batteries, and now he's in the recycling. And he talks about the
That's
EV
correct.
as an ecosystem quite a bit. So you were an engineer there initially, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And after a period of time, you actually changed into something kind of different from engineering. Want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess like scooching back a little bit, started my career in oil and gas, and when you and I shifted and worked together at the Gigafactory, that was my kind of introduction into high tech critical infrastructure construction management. And so I did that there, very closely bonded with other folks at the Gigafactory. Moved then over to a general contractor actually for a couple of years, focusing on hyperscale data centers. So I built for a lot of the larger data center outfits in the West. And then when I transitioned to Redwood 3 years ago, I was still in that engineering and construction management sort of site development phase. That's how I was connected to Kevin Kaskirk, our COO, and a lot of the team at Redwood. And so I spent my first couple of years at Redwood doing that. I've since transitioned using that public policy part of my degree for the first time in over a decade. And now I'm doing external relations and government affairs. So a lot with workforce development. I work with community and federal grants programs, some mentorship opportunities and things like that. So it's quite a shift from the engineering and construction management where you and I work together.
Well, workforce development is something we talk about here quite a bit. We might have to have you back and just have a whole segment or 2 segments just on that. I kind of asked for your bio here, and it goes back to my opening statement that you've been in heavy industry or dirty industry. You've been in the high tech sector.
Yep.
I forgot. I actually knew that you
Yep.
actually were in the data center, global data sphere. I actually know some people. We'll have a conversation about that later. Back over to
Cool.
tech in recycling, and now kind of in public relations and government. So you've
Exactly.
in a decade or so you've transferred, and I think you might. We talk about 2 to 3 major career path changes. I think you might actually beat that number. So, but
Perhaps exactly. Yeah,
all
I'm
exciting.
at 3 roles now.
There you go. All exciting stuff. I'm going to move on. going to go back to you're a student and you're picking your career. You're at Carnegie Mellon.
Yep.
Eight out of 10 engineers or construction people, managers are male. It's a male-dominant industry. There's been a lot of attempts, to move the needle, and they haven't been successful and stuff. And I talk to people about it quite a bit, and I've been involved in some groups that try to move the needle. And we talk about, getting to young ladies in grammar school and get them into STEM and work with them at that level and move the needle. And we haven't. That's fairly recent, so we haven't seen the ROI on that yet. But I want to ask, what was the impetuous? Where were you at? When did you decide or know that civil engineering or engineering was a field for you?
It's a really great question. I was very lucky in that I had STEM and science really prioritized for me at a super young age. So I would say I'm someone that really believes in the change maker opportunity being in that K-12 space. My father is an engineer. He works in the aerospace field. And so I was always really encouraged to focus on math and science, and went to math and science camps growing up, additional opportunities outside of school, a lot of focus on science and math while in elementary school, high school. And so I had sort of chosen the engineering path pre-high school, to be honest, and really focused on it in high school. At the time, thought that I was interested in chemical engineering. And while I was a freshman at Carnegie Mellon, I actually switched to civil and environmental, really trying to get more into that field-based engineering. I sort of chose the STEM overarching field at a young age and haven't really looked back.
Sophie, that's wonderful to hear, and I'm probably going to have to point that out to some folks. So I've worked in the state of Nevada. I helped with a program building labs in high schools, and the whole thing was robotics and automation labs. Amazing. And STEM. And one of the focus and one of the topics, and I have numerous conversations about getting, and I've mentioned this, getting girls into STEM. Yes. at the K-12 level, and that's how and you just basically told that same story, and that's amazing. Love to hear. Yes. It. We're so new into that and pushing that we actually haven't seen the ROI on it yet. But apparently you had someone, absolutely, a mentor or someone guiding you, and you arrived on your own. Like I said, you're part of that 20%. We need to work on that number quite a bit. So amazing stuff.
We do.
So that K-12 space, and here's my next question: K-12 space and STEM. And Sophie, you are a power example to young women in this industry. And I want to point that out, and thank you for doing that. Mentorship.
Thank you.
How important is that in the K-12 level with young ladies in this industry?
I think it's immensely important. I think one of the concepts that we hear a lot when we're talking about changing demographics in any space is it's really difficult for people to become what they can't see. And this is true in many different fields and across many different groups, ethnicities, genders, et cetera, of people. And so I think mentorship is really helpful because you're seeing what you may want to become. And maybe it ends up that you don't want to choose that exact path. But having people who are looking out for you, who are focused on your future and helping you make those strategic decisions, even at a young age, is really important. And I've been really lucky to have amazing mentors along the way. You being one of them, someone that you could really trust and go to for advice while dealing with some pretty sticky situations, as you and I have. And I think it's important when you're in early in your education, early while exploring internships and co-op opportunities. But I find, more than a decade into my career, it's still really important now to focus on what is that jump from middle management to higher leadership look like? What are the skills that I need? What can I work on? And it's also really important to take a moment and look look back as well. Some of the younger female engineers that I'm working with now, I've kind of set up reoccurring one-on-one meetings every couple of weeks so that they have that safe space to ask questions, maybe talk about some topics. They may or may not be, work related. They could be broader professional development questions, but making sure that I'm kind of passing along that time and those resources that were really graciously given to me throughout my career.
That's awesome. I'll be honest with you, mentorship is what keeps me in this. I love working with young people and young talent and watch. And I really enjoy vicariously watching them succeed. You said a couple of things. You said a lot of good things there, actually. But one of the things, there's a misnomer, and a lot of young people, think they go down a certain road and have to continue down that road, and and halfway down they realize that maybe this isn't me, and they continue on that. Having that open dialogue where they have that opportunity to espouse that and talk about it. There's nothing wrong with backing up and changing careers. Or just you went from a chemie, which is chemies are in huge demand, and you could have went with that,
wonderful
but you
field.
went to civil. Taking stock of yourself and having people to talk to about it is so important. Now, you were very, very humble here. Mentorship with young people. I know you're involved in it. Talk to me a little bit about some of the amazing things I know that you've done in that area with young people, young ladies.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And I also just appreciate that you're really focused on this in the public forum. I think it's a story that more people need to hear, and we need to talk about it and normalize it and hopefully get more momentum in this space. So it's amazing that you're having me on here today to talk about something I'm so excited about. But you and I have been circling around this for the last few minutes, which is this emphasis on really reaching young people and young women specifically when they're in still that early school age, in order to kind of foster at least the idea of exploring either a career in STEM or a career in the skilled trades. I think this is something that's super important. So working with math and science camps ever since I was actually in high school, being a counselor for young women at these opportunities to explore science and math, maybe outside the classroom, some things that may make them feel more comfortable is an area I've worked in. Another area I'm a very firm believer in is making sure that we teach and give the opportunity to young people to explore skilled trades, construction trades careers. I had an amazing opportunity to work with an ACE charter high school in Albuquerque, and again now actually in Reno, ACE standing for Architecture, Construction, and Engineering. And these are sort of CTE blend high school diploma programs that really let young people explore what it means to go into the skilled trades, and they graduate things like with their OSHA 10, the use of skills. They do some light electrical work, some light HVAC work, and it was really exciting not just to see kind of the opportunity spark for these young people, but specifically for the women, and some young women maybe at that point who don't really see a college future for themselves, but they're looking at other trades, which is totally great in the beauty industries and things like that. But they absolutely have a future in the skilled trades if that is something that interests them. And so I think we really try to focus on making them feel safe, making them feel welcome, and making sure that they have a clear vision path to other women who have done that. And again, that's that example that they can see themselves becoming. So those have been really great opportunities for mentorship. I still am lucky enough to work with my alma mater, Carnegie Mellon, and have been a mentor for some undergraduate and graduate students looking to explore similar fields like the battery industry, high tech construction, but also just looking to speak with someone in general about what their future may mean.
Sophie, that was amazing, and I could probably make a comment about everything. I'm not. You said it very, very succinctly. I do want to make one point. One thing you did say, I want to point out when you talked about trades and things of that nature. I think we've done a lot of it. I talk about this a lot. There's kind of a stigma about trades and the non-traditional, we push the 4-year degree so much, those non-traditional vocational trainings. I think we turned the corner, the pendulum is starting to move, but we need to emphasize that,
Yes.
the 4-year track isn't for a lot of folks. Those micro degrees, nano degrees and micro certifications people are talking about. And I've actually worked in some of those programs out in Nevada where those kids are leaving with their OSHA or they're leaving with a PLC training or, they're getting their, and they might work in that field, they might not, but they have it exposed. They're exposed to it and they realize it's out there. And sometimes it's just the exposure.
Exactly.
Important stuff. We need to get past that stigma. 4-year degree is great, but it's not great for everybody. It doesn't make sense for a lot of folks. And as we talk about people, segueing from one career path to the next, we don't want to go back for a 4-year degree every time. We want to do some micro certs and nano degrees and upskilling it in-house, and those are the things we need to look at. So all good stuff. And if we're gonna move manufacturing forward in the United States or reshore, we need to build smart factories. We need to work on our workforce development. We need to, there's a stigma, a stigma to vocational. There's a little stigma to manufacturing. Actually, someone writing a book called "Making Manufacturing Sexy Again." Not quite sure it was ever sexy, but it's definitely a worthwhile career path. Manufacturing adds to the GDP. It adds to the economy. It adds to a prosperous America. It's worked for us before and it can work for us again. Sophie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being an example to young women and doing the things that you do. I really, really appreciate it. I look forward to having you back and talking some more. So, thank you.
I would love to chat again. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Rory. It's really great to see you again.
Great seeing you, Sophie.